I will start. Hey, speaking of which, I will start with what you can blame on Steve Yzerman, and of course the players that have been brought in by Steve Yzerman. They have to play, but still on the because I'm looking at the totality of the season right now. Here's what I'll give Steve Yzerman credit for. The Red Wings offense this year was actually very good. It was top 10 in the NHL in goals scored per game, and getting guys like Alex DeBrincat, who stumbled towards the end. He basically, what Alex DeBrincat did this year was the same as he did last year. His numbers last year with Ottawa and the Red Wings this year are basically identical, although we'll talk more about him later and his struggles down the stretch. You know, getting a guy like Patrick Kane mid-season, which turned out to be a hell of a signing. He proved that he still has a lot left in the tank, and he was basically a point-a-game guy. Lucas Raymond stepped up big. And who drafted him? Steve Yzerman. I'll give a ton of credit for that. And then, of course, defensively, drafting Mo Seider was a phenomenal draft pick, especially given the circumstances, given the fact that they didn't have any lottery luck. I'll give him credit for that. But right now, I want to just look at this as in totality. All of that is all well and good. However, the Detroit Red Wings this season were the only team that were a top 10 goal-scoring team to not make the playoffs. And here's why. Because their defense this season was no better at all than it was last year. It was bottom 10 in the NHL. They basically gave up the same goals per game as they did last year. And look at what they added this past offseason and even mid-season. Who did you add? One of the things you might have been counting on is Ville Husso to stay healthy. But Ville Husso, as much as we give him credit for some of the things he did last year, last season he was 34th in goals allowed per game and 38th in save percentage. And one of your answers to that is bring in career backup Alex Lyon, who this season was 36th in goals allowed per game and 27th in save percentage, and 35-year-old veteran James Reimer, who basically had the same numbers as Alex Lyon. That's not good enough. The goaltending over the totality of the season was putrid. It was awful. But then you can also go to the defense. Who did you bring in off of a defense last season that wasn't great either? Last season, you had guys like Osterley and Filip Hronek who they traded, and obviously Wallman and Seider and Sherratt and all of that. And obviously Osterley and Hronek don't play for the team anymore, but some of the guys you added were 35-year-old Jeff Petrie, who shouldn't be playing. It's just the nature of hockey is that you have multiple lines, so that's why Jeff Petrie is out there. Justin Holl, who was so bad that he's not playing, and Shane Gostisbehere, who I give him a lot of credit for leading the team in assists, he's not a great defender. So the moves that Stevie Y made this offseason to help bolster the defense and help bolster the goaltending, pretty much all of them failed to some extent. And that's why their defense is no better now than it was last year. That's what I blame on Stevie Y in terms of personnel and what he's brought in. You can give him credit for the offense because DeBrincat and Kane over the totality of a season was big time. Even guys like Sprong and Comfer, who really stumbled down the stretch but also had moments of the year they were very valuable, that was all well and good. But defensively, the moves that were made were just awful, just terrible. Like, there was really nothing you can say about them other than that, except for Gostisbehere's offense, and then, of course, bringing up Simon Edvinsson late in the season. So that's where I give Stevie Y a bit of the blame for this. The fact that over the totality of the season, you didn't improve your defense at all, even though your offense was fine. And now let's get to Derek Lalonde and then some of the players.
Oh, man. Let's go.
The way that the Red Wings just imploded down the stretch, that just can't happen. There's no excuse for that. And I know players have to play, but just remember this. After a 6-game winning streak, this was after they beat the Washington Capitals, by the way, 8-3. The Red Wings were 9 points clear for the last playoff spot. 9 points. And what do they proceed to do in their next 19 games? Go 5-12-2. And oh, by the way, in the immediate aftermath of that 6-game winning streak, they immediately go on a 7-game losing streak in which you're outscored 36-12. I don't care if Larkin's out. I don't care about any of that. That is not acceptable. That's coaching. That's not having your team ready. That's just them like laying down and dying and just giving up for 7 games. And you follow that up with a win against Buffalo, I believe, and then you follow that up with a blowout loss at Pittsburgh. That would have been a nice win to have, by the way, because Pittsburgh and the Red Wings were fighting with each other for a spot, although the Capitals were the one that you really worry about. More on that later. You can't have that happen. There's no excuse for that. And that's why I I don't like when people say like, oh, they got it together. They won their last 3 games. If it wasn't for, Philadelphia and Boston and those bum franchises, or if it wasn't for those dumb rules, the Red Wings would be in the playoffs. No, if it wasn't for the Red Wings and imploding at that point, they wouldn't be in the playoffs. And Derek Lalonde, all I've ever heard come out from him when it comes to his press conferences and everything is like, oh, we never thought we'd be in this position anyway. If you would have told us we'd have this, we'd be in a playoff run. This was when they were on their losing streak. We would have taken that. Oh boy, I don't know if we're going to be there next year. New Jersey, they should get better with maybe a full season of Jack Hughes.
Bro.
No, I don't want to hear that.
No,
I don't want to hear that.
You know what? Because that, to me, when we sit here and we wonder, how did this team go from kind of having this cushion that made us all comfortable? We were like, there's no way they can blow this. They have enough to sustain injuries because of the lead that they had in the wild card, just a hair away from a top 6 playoff spot. And to know that the coach is doing this, I wonder how much of that plays into the players' mindset and mentality as well. When you look at, and we're going to continue to juxtapose this thing to other Detroit sports teams, why do we give the Lions so much credit in their head coach, in their coaching staff? Because of their mentality, the mindset. They're forward thinking. The expectation that they're putting out there to say, you know what? No, there is no excuse. Go out there and do your job. Even when they mess up, hey, we effed up. You know what I'm saying? When they win, they say, we got to do it again. To the point that we didn't see the Detroit Lions lose back-to-back games all season, man. To hear this from the coaches, it's just like the players hearing this. And you got this weird mix of kind of young talent and veteran talent. The veterans are always going to play at their same speed. But the young players, your young talent, the talent that you're hoping could be here for a long time, start to instill this mindset of, you know what, go all out all the time. There can't be this aspect of, we're just happy to be here. This is not why you go and hire Steve Yzerman. This is not why you go and bring in people like Alex DeBrincat. That's not why you go and bring in a Patrick Kane to have a cute season. Well, like, the more I'm hearing that, it's like the more I'm getting frustrated, man. Well,
and I guess that's what drives me crazy the most is because Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane, especially with how Patrick Kane worked out, those are not the type of moves that you make if you just want to get close and almost get in. Those are big-time moves, and they did help improve this offense. I will give them that. It's just, and at the time, people were so excited. I remember I did a show with Neil Rule at Feldman, and this isn't even a shot at him, where I pretty much said, they're in. And Neil Rule basically was like, oh, no, they're in. There's no question about it. Well, it turns out they weren't. And I know Neil Rule and Spencer Raxter put up car flags. And now you got Neil Rule talking about like, oh, they're just regressing to the mean. They're a 500 team. This was always going to happen. No, I do not accept that. They were 33-20-6 at one point. They were 9 points clear of the last playoff spot. And it's not just that they went 5-12-2. It's not just that they went on a 7-game losing streak in an embarrassing fashion. It's the fact that one of the aspects of the team which you had counted on completely let you down during this stretch. During this 5-12-2 stretch, the normally very good Red Wings offense gave you 2.4 goals per game, which by the way, that is, you basically means you're playing like the 3rd worst offense in the NHL for a 19-game stretch. You had a guy like Alex DeBrincat, who for part of the season was very good, give you a total of 1 goal. You had JT Compher give you 7 points in 19 games. You had Daniel Sprong give you 2 points and get benched. You had Robbie Fabry give you 6. You had Joe Veleno give you 2. You had guys like Rasmussen and Andrew Kopp, who both got hurt for a time, both underperform, at least to what they were doing at that point in the year. And also, it wasn't just that. It was the fact that their defense, which was not good throughout the whole year, completely took an ish during that part. They went from being bad to amongst the worst in the NHL during a 4th of the season. This isn't a 10-game stretch. This wasn't just during that 7-game losing streak, which the Red Wings could have overcame, by the way, if they would have played better after that. That's the stuff that I put on, obviously, the players, but I put on effort, I put on coaching. If you collapse like that in a season, especially when you're basically at some point capturing the hearts of this entire city, we're putting up car flags, we're talking about playoffs, we're talking about all of that, we're talking about, Yzer playing 19-19 and everything is awesome and everything's perfect, and then you implode. That's not acceptable, and you will never convince me otherwise. And I think some of you guys are soft on Red Wings. Are being soft as Charmin.
And I see Randall Small, he said 2 different sports. Cool. Like, look, I get football and hockey are 2 different sports, but the mindset in which you take any aspect of a playing field, that mindset should never be about being satisfied with where you are. That is small-minded mentality. Hey, we don't come here like, we're just happy to be here. No, like even us on this show, man, even you guys out there in your work, I don't think anybody says, hey, we're just happy to be here. No, everybody's working to get one step better than they were the day before. That should be the mentality. That's what I love about the Detroit Lions. That's what I love about Sheila. That's what I like about Chris Spielman. They're not resting on their laurels. Brad Holmes, Mike Disner, you got even the coaching staff. They will go in there and say, you know what? I like you, buddy. You're not up to par. We're trying to get somewhere. That needs to be the mentality all the time. All the time.
Well, and Detroit Dabber, of course, who sometimes has good points, more often than not does not. This is one of your not so great points. And I hate when people do this because it makes me so upset. Well, why weren't you mad at Dan Campbell when after the NFC Championship game he said that they might not make it back? There's a difference. The Detroit Lions had an objectively successful season. They made the playoffs. They won 2 playoff games. They won their division. The Red Wings, I don't want to hear about them possibly not making it back in year 6, which would mean 6 years, no playoffs. But I actually think there's a segment of people in this audience that would be okay with that. To me, that's soft.
And that's not even Dan Campbell's full statement.
Right.
Dan Campbell is being fair to the point that he didn't want to just come out here and just be as cocky as he is, man.
Right.
Because that boy carries his in a wheelbarrow. So he's like, hey, look, I'll give you guys a little bit of a piecemeal here. It's not easy to get back. We know what the history says. But he didn't take the long way out. He could have just said, it's not easy to get back. It's going to be a hard time next year. The rest of the statement was, but we're going to get back.
Yep. Yeah.
He's put it on tape. We're going to the Super Bowl. Yes. Put that on me. And he went to that locker room, and we see the videos of him saying, look, we're the guys that's been here. Look around. You guys know the records. That's not anywhere. We're not anywhere close to that team anymore. Jared Goff. Yeah, we know what the record has been. We know since we wear the Lions jerseys, some of that stuff is stuff we're going to have to deal with. But who we are now ain't got nothing to do with that. We're moving forward, literally forward, to the point that that freaking song makes sense now. They're literally moving forward down the field. Like, I'm just like,
that is right.
That's what I want to see out of the Red Wings. And that's why I wanted to ask you the question, because I do believe that Steve Yzerman, when you bring in those types of vets, you believe your team is ready to kind of take that next step. You don't go and kind of augment your team that way if you don't think so. But to understand that from a coaching standpoint, the mentality was one in which, hey, wow, look at this.
Yeah.
I didn't know this happens. Like, wow, cute season. It's just like, no, that can't be the mentality at all from your head coach. Your head coach needs to instill with media, needs to instill with the players, needs to instill with the front office and everybody that it concerns that our objective is to make the playoffs. Our objective as a coach is not to say, let me just try and coach a cute season. That should never be it.
Well,
ever.
And I challenge all of you in the chat really quick, all of you who are disagreeing with me and who don't like what I have to say. Every single one of you in the offseason, and for the record, this move did help them, just not enough this year, were just effusive in that, we got Alex DeBrincat. And for the record, I don't blame you for that. Oh, Stevie Y, that is the most brilliant GM move in the history of NHL hockey. And also, if you would have known what you would have got from Patrick Kane this season, what you thought might have been the corpse of Patrick Kane, which turns out not to be the corpse of Patrick Kane, none of you would have been like, oh, but we're not going to make the playoffs. That's the thing that I can't stand. And the same with all of you in the chat as well. Nobody, and I mean nobody, predicted when they were 9 points clear that they would have this kind of an implosion. But now it's not only okay, it's further proof of how great everything is. Like I'm going to say right now, I did this on Big D Energy, but I'm going to do it again. 5-12-2 stretch. It tastes so good. Bottom 10 defense. Wasting a Lucas Raymond, great season. Wasting a Dylan Larkin, great season. Wasting a Patrick Kane season because they can't defend. So good. That's what I'm hearing.
Mike G. Fetto, who's got it better than us? They love your nobodies.
You're going to take your test? I'll take your stupid test.
Oh, my gosh. And I see Randall Smalley asks, did they take a step forward? Listen, for the players.
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did.
They did.
I'm talking more about the mindset of your head coach. That should matter. When you see a team that's gone through some of the stretches they've gone through, and we all knew their deficiency, that's the time for the coach to step up and say, you know what? This is our objective. This is what we're playing for. I need everybody now to go out there and give 110%. I don't care about your 100% right now because this is where it got them. They had more to give, in my opinion. There was more to coach this team through. And then all of a sudden you see him kind of play with a sense of urgency towards the end of the season after they no longer controlled their own destiny. That's what I'm talking about. Whether Lalonde's here next year or not, I want to see a completely different perspective from the head coach that the players understand. This is what we're working towards. We talk about, hey, listen, the same people who are asking these questions are also the same ones yesterday who were going hype about seeing the Lions at involuntary workouts trying to work to get to a higher place than they did last year. Why? Because that's been the mantra since the clock hit 0 in San Francisco, is that, guys, we fell short. They didn't come out saying, hey, you know what? Who thought the Lions would be in the Super Bowl? You know who thought? They thought, to the point that it's a disappointment for them. It's a disappointment. And everything they've done since then, from the free agency to what we know they're going to do in the draft to what we already see the players doing, it's about getting back to the top and this time punching that ticket. I don't even think in their minds it's about just getting to the Super Bowl. I believe they think that they missed out on an opportunity to actually win a Super Bowl. It's the mentality. It's the mindset. That has to be instilled. Anybody who plays sports understands that. If you are not being led by your coach to go and reach a certain peak, you're not going to get there, man. You're not. You'll have some players that can self-motivate. You'll have some players that can try and pull up, but it's one of the toughest things to do in sports when your head coach is not also putting you guys in the position mentally and on the ice to reach the next step, man. I think they blew a great opportunity. It was in their control. It wasn't like they were battling all year. They went through some egregious stretches, man.
Not only did they lose their playoff spot, they were 9 points clear basically going into the month of March, and they gave up their ability to control their own destiny with 3 games left. That's just not okay. And Detroit Dabber, again, having yourself a day. You pick and choose what words from coaches to overanalyze to fit your narrative. Dabber, it's not a narrative that Derek Lalonde was the head coach of this team that effed their season. Yeah. If you want to put different value than I do on making the playoffs and to say that the Red Wings are just fine and they made progress, be my guest. I'll disagree with you, but I'll listen to that. But I'm not going to let you spit shine this turd, and that's what a lot of people are doing. That's what people are going to do all day long and blame everybody else. Blame the overtime rules. Wah! Every team in the NHL has to deal with them. Blame the fact that if you get more regular season wins, that's a tiebreaker. Wah! Every team has to deal with that. Blame Boston and Philadelphia. Wah! Control what you can control. This is what sports is all about. This is what living a healthy life is all about, having a healthy mentality. Control what you can control. And the Red Wings forfeited that opportunity because when they were at the point where they were riding the highest, they then completely imploded. 5-12-2 is horrendous. That's 12 points in 19 games. That's like some San Jose Sharks shit right now. That's some Chicago Blackhawks shit. That's not the Red Wings. And if you predicted that and you think that that's okay, you're soft. Soft as Charmin.
Oh my God.